Here we are. Now, the University of Toronto is a university that is essentially downtown, downtown Toronto. And you'll see here the St. George campus, which is the middle one, is right, very centrally located. And it also has two satellite campuses. For the longest time, those two campuses were used for very specialized studies and that sort of thing. Recently, in recent years, Scarborough campus has been the center of a lot of the co-op programs. And these are very popular, especially lately, because they provide you with, first of all, with real world experience and real life experience. But more importantly, they also provide you with money. As you probably have figured out already, applying to universities in Canada is not inexpensive. It's less expensive than American universities, of course, but it's still a considerable amount of money. And in order to make this happen, one of the things that they've thought of is to provide you with a means of earning money. And this is not just earning, pocket money, but this is earning real money at real rates. So Scarborough campus, which is the campus there you see on your right, is the one that is generally doing that. It's quite a new university campus compared to the St. George campus, which was established in the 1800s. The Mississauga campus, which is also called Arundel, is often used for specialized programming still, including some of the computer programs and some of the more specialized things that require special equipment. I'm just going to move to the next slide here. Now, the University of Toronto is unique among universities in Canada because it's international, both international faculty and its student body. The top five countries, of course, as with almost all universities in Canada, China is number one, but India is number two, the United States is number three. That's worth noting that there are more Indian students than there are American students at the University of Toronto. That is, I think, pretty much unique among Canadian universities. And a lot of the reason for that is the interest in computer studies and technology studies, which is very popular in India and is extremely well regarded in the University of Toronto. But South Korea and Hong Kong are also represented. Other countries such as Turkey and Saudi Arabia are as well. But we're talking about tens of thousands of students, and not just a few. Part of the flavor of the university is colored by the fact that I just want to make sure you can all hear me. Is colored by the fact that we have an international student body in a city which is filled with people from other countries as well. One of the interesting things that people always say about Toronto is that you'll sit on the subway and rarely will you hear English spoken. Okay, I'm just trying to switch to the next slide. I can no longer see the controls, so I'm sure that's working. Here we are. This is the rankings of the university in comparison to other universities in Canada. Now, I will note that in the global rankings of academic subjects, the University of Toronto is the highest ranked university in Canada, and it's still one of the top 10 universities in the world in a large number of areas, up to 29 different fields. But let's look at the top rankings here in the QS World Ranking. And there's a number of other places you can go. One is the Canadian magazine called Maclean's Magazine, does an annual rating of schools as well. And University of Toronto is regularly at the top of that among the larger universities. There are other universities, like, for example, the University of Waterloo, which is quite a small university. It's only about 10,000 students, whereas University of Toronto is, I believe, with the undergraduate and the graduate faculty, it's about 65,000. So it's quite a bit larger. And you'll note that one of the drawbacks of the university is its size as well. The University of Toronto, though, is ranked number 21 in the world. I would caution you against using the entrance average ranking as anything, because it, in fact, it's a bare minimum, and it's not really representative of what you would need in order to be successful in applying to the university. It's true that 86.5 is the minimum, and they say the entrance average requirement. But the fact of the matter is, as with most universities, the better you do, the more your chances are to get in. The academic achievement is far and away the most important thing, particularly at the University of Toronto. But it's, it's followed by the University of British Columbia, which is again an excellent university on the other side of the country, but McGill University, which is the oldest university in Canada. Then there's McMaster, University of Montreal, which is in French, so I wouldn't recommend that one to people who don't speak French. University of Alberta, University of Ottawa, Western University, which is actually fairly close to the University of Toronto and fairly closely aligned as well. And University of Calgary, which is in Alberta, and finally the University of Waterloo, which is very close as well to Toronto, but it's a small university. I mentioned earlier in reference to Scarborough campus, the co-op program. These are generally done in between study terms, but they can be done at the same time, not at the same time as you're studying, but at the same time as the term is going on. Generally speaking, the terms go from September to December, then January to April. For the most part, the majority of the faculty do not teach in the summertime, but there are summer courses offered. So if you did want to continue your education, you could do that. But this is a time that's generally used by faculty members as a time to do research. And it's also a good time to do the co-op programs. So often from April to September, we use this as the co-op program. What is a co-op program? It's a program where you are assigned to work at either at a research facility or at a corporation to learn your work on the ground. So it's really a very it's an idea that's taken from the community college program where they try to get practical experience. And this is extremely valuable, of course, because not only does it lead to your own knowledge, but it also, in many cases, leads to a full-time job. So, you can arrange to have this in Canada, or in some cases, you can get positions in the United States. And in extraordinary circumstances, you can also have it in other countries. For example, if you have connections in your home country, you might be able to work out something with the university so that you could, in fact, go back and work there and report on this. It's the way they characterize it is to develop real-world professional skills and to networks. Now, the universities recognize that they want the graduates to stay in Canada, of course, and so that's quite natural, I think. And one of the ways to do it is to offer this program where you can earn money to do it. And now here's some of the popular majors. These are the popular majors rated in a number of American universities. I'm sorry, a number of American publications. So mathematics, of course, is highly rated. As a general rule, I would say that the science and math and technology areas at the University of Toronto tend to be extremely strong. I believe the answer to your question is yes, you can get a recording later. The next one is arts and humanities. Arts and humanities includes many different fields, and according to the Shanghai subject ranking, which is a ranking consultancy from Shanghai, the global ranking for a number of subjects is slightly different from this, and I want to mention it in reference to the arts and humanities because the specific subjects are psychology and sociology, public health, management, human and biological sciences. So, and medical technology as well. Now that's, of course, you can see here, arts and humanities is number 6, which is very, very high ranking. It includes subjects such as psychology, sociology, also politics, economics, history, and other things of that nature. So in the social sciences. So computer science is very highly rated as well. Biology and chemistry, engineering, and economics and business. The business program is far and away the best program in the country. It's also the largest, the most competitive, and in some senses, the one drawback is that it's not very personal. That's a general. If there's one complaint about the University of Toronto is its lack of personal touch. If that doesn't bother you, then you're in a good place. It's simply the fact that the university is large. It's about, it's in a city of 6 million people. It's in the largest city in Canada, and it's also a very large university in itself. And the result of this is, in many cases, a lot of the programs have classes that have many, many thousands of students in them. At the present moment, it's not a big problem because almost all the classes are done online. This is going to probably happen for the foreseeable future too. We have just a side note about the COVID-19, which is on everybody's mind right now. As of now, in order to enter the country, you need to have a negative COVID-19 test. You don't actually have to have the vaccine yet because, of course, it isn't available everywhere. But that will be a consideration fairly soon. This country, in comparison to other countries, has been doing quite well in the COVID fight. Nevertheless, it is a subject of some concern. We have, in the country about 4,000 cases per day, which is worrisome. But when you compare it to, for example, the United States, which has over 20 times as many cases, or the UK, for example, that has 9 times as many, I think overall we're doing quite well. Now let's talk a little bit about the application components in getting into the university, of course, because none of this is relevant if you don't get in, right? Applying to it, you have to apply as you do with all Ontario universities. Ontario is the largest province in Canada, and the majority of universities are actually in Ontario. University of Waterloo, McMaster University, Western University, and the University of Toronto, as well as York University, are all in Ontario. And you apply to all of these through the website called the OUAC, or the Ontario Universities Application Center. This is what it looks like, and you can have a look at it when you go to that website. I would make a note of it now if I were you, or if you're going to get a recording later, don't worry about it. But there is a process by which it sort of streamlines a lot of your application form, and it's through this OUAC. Now here are the faculty deadlines. As a general rule, January 15th is a deadline. So as you can see, that's a little bit pressing. You got to get in pretty quick. I am assuming that many of you have already started the application process because of the date. The only slight differences are medical radiation services, which are a bit later for a number of reasons. The physician assistant program, which is through the medical program, and finally the Bachelor of Information. But generally speaking, it's January the 15th for both University of U of T Mississauga, which is Arundel campus, and the Scarborough campus, as well as the St. George campus, which is the main campus at the university. Just going to move on a little bit here. Now, the application review process is the process by which you determine whether you have everything finished. So how your application is to be considered. First, they will verify that you meet the university's general admission requirements, which are, for our requirements, is the completion of a high school diploma with some sort of distinction, and an English language requirement. I'll talk a little bit about more about this in a minute. But that's the general thing. Of course, you need to speak English because the language of instruction is English in almost all cases. This is slightly different from other universities in Canada, many of which offer programs in other languages, including French, and in some cases other languages as well. But the second thing they do is assess whether you meet the program-specific requirements. Now, there are hundreds and hundreds of programs at the University of Toronto, and all of them have slightly different requirements. So I urge you to go to their specific website and look at their specific requirements, because you don't want to just submit something and have one thing missing. There's nothing worse than having one thing missing, because having the one thing missing will mean that you're not going to be considered at all, and nobody's going to tell you about this. So do you have the necessary subject prerequisite courses? This is something that you should have thought of, a year or two before applying to the university, because in many cases it's the math courses and the science courses, with the exception of course, the humanities. The University of Toronto does not have the capacity to admit all applicants who meet the minimum general requirement. So, of course, it's a large university, but it's a competitive university. So just because you have all the requirements does not ensure that you're going to be accepted, especially now where there's very changing requirements quite quickly too. But they select students for admission based on their competitive strength. If you are what they consider to be a better student than the other, then you will be accepted and the other student will not. And then there's an emphasis on their final assessment. It will be placed on the results of your 2 most recent years of study, including your marks in prerequisite courses, particularly. So they don't just take an average. So you could say, oh, I have a 92 average. Yes, but you got a 75 in algebra. That's not a good thing. So think about that as well. But there's various other things that can override some of these things. And the specific one is the personal statement or profile, where this is required. And it's not required in all cases, but it's always a good idea to try to do it as well. However, there are other things that may be considered as well to sort of round out your complete academic record, including your consistency in courses, when and where the courses were taken and completed, the number of times any of these courses have been attempted, and if you're able to apply provide them with test scores from your educational jurisdiction, they will also assess that based on previous experience. The University of Toronto, more than anyone else, has these ways of knowing what certain schools are, and it's probably the most comprehensive of all of them. Just so you know, I will answer questions at the end. We have a question period, so feel free to ask those questions, and they will be answered at the end. Okay, I'm not sure why Iceland is up there, but as a general rule, all India senior students need to have a senior school certificate, which is awarded by the CBSE, or an Indian school certificate awarded by CISCE. The year 12 state board exams with excellent results will also be considered. CBSE students interested in programs that require calculus for admission, such as business, engineering, science, computer science, and various other things, must present class 12 standard mathematics for admission as well. And I think that's generally accepted, and most of you already know that, I hope. If you don't, now you know it. Now, here's the review process if you are not admitted. And there is an appeals process, but generally speaking, these are the reasons why you were not accepted. First is and foremost, and by far the most important one, is that your overall average or your grades or prerequisites are not competitive. In other words, somebody else did better than you in the courses. Or if you did not present the senior level or English course. So there are various English language proficiency courses you can take. IELTS is one of them, but there's also a number of other ones. And most of them are accepted by the University of Toronto if you have the course taken. The other thing is that if you've taken your language of instruction for several years in high school in English, they generally speaking don't need these language requirement tests, because it's obvious that you have studied in English for a number of years, and that's expected that you would continue. But the other one is that if you did not present a senior grade 12 courses in all the prerequisite subjects required for your specific program, and here's something to take note of, if you have repeated an unacceptable number of courses for the program. In other words, if you've taken a course several times, it suggests to the admissions committee that you perhaps are not as strong as someone else who only had to do it once. However, it's still a good idea if you didn't do well in a course to take it again. So if you have an insufficient number of available courses also, often people take the bare minimum of courses and they find at the last moment that they actually don't have the right number of courses. And then of course the English language requirement, if applicable, was not met by the deadline. In some cases, you have not submitted your supplementary information or it wasn't competitive. I'm going to talk about the supplementary information in a minute, but let me talk first about your high school transcript. Here we are. In India, candidates studying in the Indian education system are required to provide the following certifications in the subjects of math, chemistry, and physics at the grade 12 level. And this is for most of the sciences and computer science. So an All India Senior School Certificate awarded by the CBSE, or an Indian School Certificate awarded by CSCE, or a year 12 state board exams. The other one, of course, is the International Baccalaureate program, where I think that's self-evident if you have to have completed that. And then proof of English facility may be required if you have taken courses in other languages. Prerequisite courses should be presented in the 12th year, In other words, it's not necessarily a good idea to take courses early in your 11th or 10th year that are 12th year courses, because it's based on your excellent 10th board examination, final 11th school grades, and predicted grade 12 board results from your school. As you know, of course, you're probably in your final year right now, and so the final results will not be available, but what they do is that they take your grades up to December, and then they project what they think they will be for the rest of the year. And provided it's right at the time of acceptance, you will be accepted on a temporary basis. Moving along, this is the International Baccalaureate for the IB program that I was mentioning earlier. Now, candidates completing their first assessment in May of 2021 must present a mathematics course, which includes analysis and approaches higher level, analysis and approaches standard level, applications and interpretations higher level, as well as chemistry, physics, and English. It's, of course, in all cases, highly recommended that you take the higher level courses. And this is not simply for being admitted to the university. The main reason for this recommendation is that it will give you the knowledge that you need in order to succeed once you do get in. One of the things that's often forgotten in these application program is that the reason why the prerequisites are there are not simply as a sort of a stumbling block for you, but they're to provide you with the actual skills you need in order to succeed once you get in. One of the most common things that happens with students in universities is that they do extremely well in high school. You know, they're the top of their school, and then they go to university where they meet other people who have also done that, and they find that their grades fall. The norm is somewhere between 8 and 10% lower. And it's jarring for people. It's shocking for people that they're not doing as well. They're not as outstanding as they used to be. Well, it's when you're a big fish in a small pond, you can eat the other fish. But when you're just a normal sized fish in a large pond, it's a little more difficult. So bear in mind that this is something that could be difficult. Sorry, someone's asked a question, and I'll get to it in later on. But yes, so these are, generally speaking, new IB mathematics courses with first assessment are in May 2021. These are the courses that will satisfy calculus and advanced functions prerequisites for science and business programs. So mathematics applications and interpretations, higher level, mathematics analysis and approaches, standard level, mathematics analysis approaches, higher level as well. So these will satisfy the advanced functions prerequisite. Just as a general rule, IB programs are favorably looked upon by most Western universities. And these are the standardized tests we're going to talk about now. English language, someone asked earlier if the IELTS is accepted, and yes, it is. That's the International English Language Testing System. The TOEFL, or TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language, is also accepted, and then IB English 4. These are the ones that are generally accepted and the ones that are most relevant. This is not a comprehensive list, and there are other ones that are offered. So do your research, look at the University of Toronto's requirements. They have it quite specifically laid out there. This is a question that actually I was asked a little while ago by a student, whether or not the Canadian universities take SATs into account. As a general rule, it's not particularly relevant because SATs are an American standardized test. However, I have recently found out that through a number of people that work at the university that they do, in fact, if you have done the SAT and if you've scored between 1330 and 1500 on it, they will take that into account because it is a way of testing your general abilities. In the past, I had been discouraging people from bothering with this because it seems to be a waste of time. I think that's no longer true. They now are, at least at the University of Toronto and at McGill. They are including SATs. The same is true if you're applying for a graduate program in years to come. You should take the GRE, which is the graduate version of the SAT. So grade 12 at an accredited high school with a high grade point average and high scores on SAT reasoning and redesigned, including an essay or ACT exams, including the writing test component. Also excellent results in senior level AP, honors or equivalent courses, including math. By math, I mean calculus, chemistry, and physics. Consideration is given for AP and SAT subject tests in math, calculus, math, chemistry, and physics. This is for obvious reasons the skills that you're going to need. Now, lest you think that the University of Toronto is only concerned with your academics, they're not, although there is a disproportionate importance put onto that. I shouldn't say disproportionate, proportionate emphasis put on your academics, but there are other things you can do as well. You should, and there is a place to do that on the University of Toronto website. You should list all of your extracurricular activities. The way this is phrased is a little bit strange, so let me just look at it for a second. When they say extracurricular activities, they're talking about volunteering. That means unpaid work, hobbies, things that you do on your own free time, sports, employment, travel, in some cases political activity, charity activity, or even things that you do to help family members from the time that you completed high school until the present. Now, that's what I find is a little bit confusing, because of course many of you are going to say, I haven't completed high school yet. Don't worry about that. They want to know things, and it doesn't really matter when you did them, as long as it wasn't incredibly far in the past. Include any completed while attending a post-secondary education. Well, that's not really relevant. I'm going to move to the next slide here. Now, these are the things to emphasize: quality over quantity. In other words, don't list that you played on 10 different sports teams, and most of them were pickup games of cricket or something. Not that cricket's unimportant, it's just that it's not super relevant to your program. So emphasize quality over quantity. List one or two things that you did extraordinarily well in, or you did particularly an outstanding job for whatever reason. So include sports that you played, yes. Clubs, I know there's a number of different clubs: math clubs, science clubs, photography clubs, students' councils, part-time employment, if it's relevant to the subject. I mean, of course, if you worked at a grocery store or something, that's not particularly relevant, but it is relevant if you did something that's related to your field of your hoped for field of study. So part-time employment is important. Independent studies, things that you did on your own. There's a number of students that I've come across in the last few years, especially in business programs, that have started their own businesses. It's so much easier now because we have those things available for us online, various things. So if you've created a business, created a product, created a line, created some sort of an online journal or a blog or something, they are interested in that, especially if it's going to be relevant. Another thing that I think that I should just mention in this area of, because it's under hobbies and interests, volunteering, and all this sort of stuff. If you have a Facebook profile, and almost everybody does, or an Instagram profile, or something on LinkedIn or something on Twitter, do make sure that it's professional. If you think that people don't look at it, think again. They absolutely do, and that you will be judged on it. So pictures of yourself drinking, pictures of yourself doing things like that are highly, highly suspect and should not be done. You should take them off if possible, at least for the duration of the time that you haven't yet been accepted to the university. Let me get back to the subject. Independent studies are important. Hobbies and interests are important. And this, I would include things like amateur dramatics, music, any kind of science studies or anything like that. And volunteering is also important to them. Of course, you want to demonstrate that you're a particularly agile person, that you have dedication, that you work hard. These are all ways of showing that. So in some cases, there's a thing called a supplementary application form. I will say that in comparison to other universities in Canada, University of Toronto places less emphasis on the supplementary application form than other universities. But that doesn't mean that it's not important. It's only a requirement if you applied for these programs: management programs, co-op management programs, or a double degree in BBA or BSc applicants, which includes, again, the co-op program, co-op international development studies, and paramedicine. So many of them, they don't require you to do a supplementary application form. But if you do, here are some of the questions that they ask. Now, I'll just look at them briefly, because I think it's important to sort of discover what exactly is going on and why. They'll ask the question, what is your favorite subject and why? Don't answer that it's your favorite subject because you did the best in it. You want to answer something slightly more specific to what you think they're going to want to hear rather than something that you want to hear. So say it's your favorite subject because of some person that inspired you in the past. Say that it's your favorite subject because of the actual reason. What is the actual reason? Ask yourself this, and it's make sure that you answer it in a serious way. This is not a place for levity. Why are you interested in the program that you're applying to? Is it simply because you did well in school, or is there a specific reason why you want to do what do you have to do? So in other words, the next question is, what skills and experiences might you bring to this field? In other words, how are you going to benefit the University of Toronto by us accepting you? 100 words or less. It's very hard to do this. I would say it reminds me of this famous quotation from Abraham Lincoln, who said, I'm very sorry that I wrote such a long letter. I didn't have time to make it shorter. What that really means is when you're answering these questions, write as much as you can and then edit it down to 100 words. Don't try to write up to 100 words and then stop. It's not a good process to do that. Now, here's something that most of you are going to be interested in, financial aid. University of Toronto, I think more than any other university in the country, has access to financial aid in many different ways. It being a very highly ranked university, of course it's competitive, but also there's more donors to it. It's got a very high donorship level in comparison to most universities in Canada, with very few exceptions. I think UBC, University of Alberta, and Waterloo probably have a bit more, but tuition isn't extraordinarily expensive. This is in Canadian dollars, from $36,000 to $58,000, depending on the program that you apply to. I know that sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but there are ways of getting the money, especially if you're an excellent student. The first and most obvious one is to go to the bank or ask your own government for whether it's your local government, whether it's your state government, or whether it's your federal government for a loan, a student loan. Student loans are often paid back at much lower rates than standard bank loans, but there are banks that will offer you money as well, particularly if you're in an area that's going to give you a career that has a high income. So that's the first place to look. The second place to look is at the actual university. University of Toronto has a lot of grants, scholarships, bursaries, work-study programs, and co-op programs. The most important among these is probably the co-op program, because they do offer you the ability to sort of pay back your tuition, and in some cases make money on top of that. There's more than 60 different scholarships that are available. Many of them will be automatic with your application, but not all of them. And some of them you actually do have to apply. So do go to the University of Toronto website, look for the scholarships that are relevant to your subject area, and apply for them. I can't tell you how many people forget to apply for this. It's very important. And even if you don't think that you need the money, it's still a good thing to have on your resume that you won a scholarship. So regardless of your actual need for that. Pardon me. Let's just look at these. Some of these ones that are automatically considered: the Audrey Hozak Student Leadership Award, the Dorothy Jean Powell Award, to be awarded to undergraduate or graduate students on the basis of academic standing. So if you did extremely well, you will be accepted to this scholarship. That's just a general thing. There are quite a few programs like this as well. Those are just two examples. But here's ones where you actually have to apply on your own. The Ontario Remembrance Scholarship, where recipients must demonstrate financial need, demonstrate academic excellence, and leadership skills demonstrated through extracurricular and community involvement. This is at the university, not beforehand. I'm sorry, I don't know what just happened. Sorry, that was me. Forgive me. Ontario members, I think. Yes, here we are. Okay. The next one is to be a Canadian citizen. This is actually a very good scholarship. So unfortunate time to cut out. The Dr. Darsinathurai V.J. Kumar scholarship. You have to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Ontario, which means you can do that after your first or second year. You can actually become a resident of Canada if you want to. and it's based on studying Tamil studies at U of T. But there's a number of programs similar to this. I don't know if I actually have, I control the screen, can I? Here we go. All right, just moving on. Again, these are just a number of small examples of things that you might be able to do.